everyone, and welcome back to another monthly installment of the Chichester Chats. I am Phil. Lilith is here. Lilith is back, and of course, it's a Chichester Chat. So, of course, you know who's here, Mr. DG Chichester.
It is the official Christmas Carol Chichester Chat. So, Lilith, Phil, thank you guys as always. It's a real honor to be part of your program, and we'll have some fun conversation. I hope today, as we always do.
We always do. All right, so today we're talking. Yeah, let's get in the Christmas spirit. 1992's Wolverine 58 and 59.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, which it appears. Well, I know it's a fill-in issue. It even tells you in the opening credits. So I would assume that the editor came to you and said, "Hey, Larry's kind of busy." Because it was Larry Hama. Larry's kind of busy writing every G.I. Joe comic in existence. Can you fill in for him for 2 issues?
Yeah, and this was at this point Wolverine, and it even says it, I think, on the cover, right? It was on sale twice a month, yeah. So it was 2 times the Wolverine, and it was it was a weird window, I think, where I was part of the cool kids club for a very short amount of time, and that was between Daredevil's popularity because of the things we were pushing. And so that had higher notice, especially probably around Fall from Grace time. And I had begun working, probably around this time, on Night Stalkers and the Midnight Suns work. So, Bobby Chase at that point had a more positive view of my work, and she was tight with Bob Harris, who of course ruled the roost on the X side of things. So I think those combined for a very surprising call. I really didn't expect to get it from Bob, or his assistant or whoever it was, saying, "Listen, Larry does need some help. Would you mind jumping in, and helping us out with 2 issues?" And it's like, "Yeah, well, bend my arm, twist my arm to write a Wolverine for a couple issues. Sure, what can I do?" And then I threw in, at that point, well, what would you guys think if I use this Terror character that we're launching around that time? I'd have to look at the exact dates, or maybe it had just launched or whatever, figuring we could get a little more attention on him in that way. So it was a nice combination of elements to get on board with it.
Yeah, because Wolverine and X-Men stuff wasn't hot in 92, was it?
No, it was just, it was a little below the radar, but people were starting to notice, and
But I see they had a guest penciler too. So did they just assign you a artist, or did you get to pick? Or
no, they picked Derek from a roster of folks. I imagine he's a terrific artist. Imagine he had done some other stuff for their office at that time in one form of the titles or other. But he was a ball. He was a blast to work with. We jumped on the phone right away as soon as. I'm sure I said who I'd be working with. Not that I would have said, "Oh, I'm not working with whoever," but just to kind of get into that collaborative vibe. And we had a ball talking it through. He loved Wolverine. He thought Terror was, off the hook as Terror is, and had a ball with that. I'm almost positive, and of course we're going back many years at this point, folks, but I am almost positive he is responsible for basically the second cover. Well, obviously he's responsible for it, but I think the whole vibe of Wolverine going with this Butch Terminator look, was a gag he suggested. Right, exactly. And that kind of led into the story things, because we were just riffing, I remember, and there was a conversation about, man, I'd love to see Wolverine shorn down, and that whole Terminator look he's got on that second cover. I feel very strongly, and it sort of goes to clairvoyant sort of way, if I use the psychic Ouija board to think back to that time, that he had, in riffing, said, I'd love to draw that. And then I followed my own rule of, well, always write what the artist wants to draw if you can.
Well, it's kind of perfect too, because he's in mourning, so when that classic almost cliche thing of a makeover when you're mourning and stuff like that. So
right, and you can see the little nod of things picking up on the story and trying to branch it off, because I'm in the weird continuity. Obviously, Larry would do the main thrust of his story and the repercussions of her death. Mariko's, death and such. But but you have to kind of, pivot your way into that and then let the readers feel that it's not, while a fill-in issue, it's not, well, here's an imaginary story, right? Or something like that. It still feels like it's a little bit in continuity.
And you kind of see too, it's like how iconic like Wolverine's mask and even the hair is. It's like you chop that all off. He takes like second prize in a Frank Castle lookalike contest.
Exactly. Although I do remember specifically Derek, saying, "Man, I'd love to do like this Terminator look," and so that's why I kind of feel, well, I had maybe the bones, the adamantium bones, as it were, of the story, kind of maybe in my head. I feel very strongly like the whole, just a little mini scene where he goes and he decides I gotta quote unquote disguise myself and take off my iconic hair and give an excuse for this hairdo was something that he suggested. And I said, yeah, we can riff on that.
And once again, I mean, the whole environmental angle, I'm sure that came from the Chichester files.
Yeah. It's weird. I look back at like the work some days and there were things that, to me felt, like they were part of the zeitgeist or whatever at the time. And there was certainly a lot of eco-terrorism discussion at that point.
And Wolverine's Canadian, and the logging industry is very vicious in Canada. So I feel like he would be near and dear to him in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I mean, I felt it worked out pretty well. And I think in some ways it's a tighter, whatever, villain backstory way to discuss it than
he's a rich evil guy. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, wasn't quite, on the level of Steven Seagal being an environmentalist, but it was, it did. And I could just tell from rereading it, in prep for this, I actually did some prep for it. I mean, there's a lot of those terms they were using, the whole, go back to the worm food. I mean, that whole offshoot of uber environmental terrorist. And I used to do a ton of research. I mean, I would actually do way too much research. I would buy, if I decided I was going to do
that creative procrastination.
It could be. Absolutely. I've gotten better over the years, but I would go into bookstores and I would say, I'm doing a story about eco-terrorism. And I would walk out with,
tax write-offs. Gotcha.
Yeah. But exactly, tax write-off. But a stack of books that probably cost me more than I was being paid to write the issue. But to me, it was good prep. And I do remember finding that fringe, you had environmentalism, you had environmental terrorism, if you want to call it, or saboteurs. And then there was actually a fringe element that was even further afield. That was almost like mankind is the problem, completely. And that
Thanos did nothing wrong.
No, exactly. Thanos was right. Where's our mugs with that? They're coming.
I don't need Disney snipers outside my window.
No. But that was so it was fun stuff, and I could see it again. That I was picking at that picking at that research in a good way throughout. But then I named the character Bloodseed, so it was like obviously I had like all this research on one hand, and then I had like let's grab at the 2x4 over here, and
These guys never made another appearance today. Was this the only appearance, or
I am sure.
I mean, written by you. This is the only time they showed up.
Yeah, I didn't go back to them. I think that's one of my I have to have at least 2 Achilles heels, probably many more than that. But I definitely introduced these characters and then never found a place for them again in anything else. Didn't go back in terms of some environmental, aspect of it. And they were goofy. They were fun. They were very, rereading it, I think they're very 90s. Oh, yeah. I mean, they're like uber 90s in the they're over the top.
Well, the 90s are back again, so.
The 90s are back again, exactly. But they were over the top. Their names were outrageous. Their actions were, they're very much in that whole, Schwarzenegger, everybody's got a quip. Let's be snarky and sarcastic while we're, fighting, that kind of thing.
But again, this is a 1992 Wolverine comic. Don't you think people were expecting this from Wolverine? From a Wolverine?
Oh, absolutely.
Book? Yeah.
No, I felt
it was a perfect blend.
Yeah.
No, it was right in the zone. And listen, the X offices, Bob's office, and had a very tight rein on their characters.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you can dispute, and I do not. But I mean, you could say, they did this with the character. I disagree with that. they were a very tight editorial office in my recollection. So in other words, if I turned in a story that was not, hitting the mark in terms of vibe and Wolverine and all this other stuff, they would have, said, go back and rework it. That there would have been no question about that.
Oh no, it was a great story. Like, the art was good. I think the art.
Yes.
What my favorite thing was? He didn't forget Jubilee.
Yes.
Jubilee was a ball. It was a ball. Like that's, and I would, again, my neurons are dying. More caffeine, but I
need that as a drop, Phil.
But I'm assuming. I think Larry introduced the whole Jubilee, Wolverine dynamic, and it's brilliant, right? It's what the character needs, in a way. Both characters need it, but especially Wolverine needs that foil for the long term, right? If you're doing like a one-off or maybe a mini series and he's going off to hunt whatever, maybe you can get away without that. But on the long term, as a continuity title, you need a foil, and she's perfect. She's got that energy. She's not afraid to, throw in with the back talk or the need for exposition leading questions, right? Which would feel ham-handed. But when she asked the question, where'd you get this corpse, this walking corpse? It's like, he can fill in the blanks in a semi-natural way. Or just, throwing shade at him, is just works out so nicely.
Yeah, that made perfect sense to me. It's like, oh, of course, Wolverine is either going to know Terror or have at least heard of Terror. Right.
Yeah, and that was it. And then I would play that back, in Terror itself and try to borrow the character back, a little bit later. But I also liked the fact he didn't really know him, right? He sort of knew of him, knew that he needed this information and could use this, freak's abilities, to parse it away. Felt like it was a little under pressure, time constraints. So he couldn't go through whatever normal research channels, right? You couldn't just Google the guy at that point. So that wasn't an option.
Axe Jeeves.
Exactly. So, so it had that rawness. And I think it's really, again, I'm sure it was interesting writing it at that point. But rereading it now, it's really interesting for me to talk about Terror through another character, because 98% of the time I wrote Terror, he was the main thrust, right? Or he had a voice in the book, even when he first appeared in the Shadowline series of books, and he was the foil to the Michael Devlin St. George character. There was always a place where probably Terror had an internal monologue, so you could sort of play out his shtick. Here, you didn't, right? It's all about Wolverine and Jubilee's perceptions of him. So it was an interesting exercise to write the character that way. But I think he comes across, pretty consistently with what he is, whatever he is.
It's kind of different, because even in the Daredevil stuff, like, he only shows up for a couple pages to like drop some information on Daredevil. It's not like a full issue like team up. So yeah, this was very interesting, very different, and I love it's like the best 90s marketing. It's like, your new character who's getting his own book shows up, and it's like, even Wolverine's like, man, this guy's crazy. So everyone's like, oh, I got to read this book. This guy, even Wolverine's like, this guy's crazy.
You would hope. I mean, I don't know that it quite translated to sales, but it certainly worked. And it got the awesome cliched, cover copy, like Along Comes Terror, right? So the only thing better would have been, welcome to the X-Men Terror. Hope you survive the trip, or together again for the very first time, all those great, cover copy hits.
I mean, I think the only problem was just the time frame. There were so many books. It's like you could get lost in the shuffle,
Right. It was a fire hose, and it was also there were so many weird prioritizations around sales and marketing and where those dollars would go. Mm-hmm. And that was always, I think we've talked about, like, the Daredevil frustration, right? Of Daredevil promotion. Was few and far between, right? Unless it was Frank Miller, Daredevil got no love. Daredevil's getting major love now. It's great time to be a Daredevil fan. But then anything that you wanted to kind of push was a big struggle, because all the dollars were going toward spiders and mutants. And then they'd say, look, we're doing our job. We're doing a great job. Well, I got pretty surprising news for you. I'm pretty sure the spiders and mutants are going to sell
no matter what,
even without whatever you're doing. Right. I'm sure it's not hurting. And you always had weird dynamics with different retailers too. There were the store owners would make choices based upon their own likes as much as anything too. So that was, I'm not saying that affected or didn't affect these. I'm saying that in general.
And the big decision, does it always come down to other media too? Because I was just thinking 92, this is around the time the X-Men animated series was first coming out. And then there was a Spider-Man animated series coming. So was that the big decision to push them in all the marketing? Is this like, oh, hey, they're getting cartoons. So, hey, let's push our X stuff. Let's push Spider-Man.
I don't know about that. I mean, there may have been conversations within marketing around that, and certainly pressure. Marvel was owned, who by that point, whatever, in between New World and I can't remember where the ownership was, right at that point, but they were certainly owned by somebody. So there may have been certain pressures there, but by and large, until, the rights when they were sold to certain things were then very much controlled by whoever the rights sold to. So there wasn't a lot of, I would say, consistent integration of that kind of marketing push, things weaving in and out that there might be more of now when everything's owned by, one single thing, right? Because when the rights were sold to do an animated series, they were kind of sold to do that. And I mean, that's the whole Spider-Man conundrum to some extent, where when Spider-Man was sold, the rights were presented to Sony as the movie. It was like, great, we got them. And until we decide to let these lapse, you guys are going to have to do this strange dance with us, forever and a day, until, Kevin Feige, just decides to whatever, just control all of Hollywood and just say, you will give me the contract now. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like they're not going to give up those Spider-Man rights. It's like it's going to have to be a Star Wars deal. They're going to have to give them like $1 billion or something for Spider-Man.
Something. And again, in all frankness, that stuff we as fans don't have to worry about in any way, shape, or form, as long as we get good movies and properties out of them. If they're and this apparently, the latest movie, is just again another proof. We will make the movie. You will get some profit off it.
Oh, yeah.
Like hands off. You've shown you have no ability to kind of control this property. So in a good, consistent way. So make some money off it. That's fine. But the Marvel masters will run with it.
Yeah, I always picture those meetings as like a scene from like South Park. Sony gets together with Disney. It's like, hey, buddy, you want to make money? Hey, we want to make money too. Let's make a Spider-Man. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, why wouldn't Sony continue that deal? I mean, they make working with Disney, they still make so much money, even if they have to split the profits.
It's an ego and it's a control thing. I think I don't think it's an apocryphal story. I'm pretty sure I read it in an article, which could still be doubtful in terms of the fact, but I think the first time Kevin, is it Feige? How do you pronounce his last name?
I would say Feige.
Feige, went into the meeting with Amy Pascal and said, listen, we're going to do a Chris Nolan deal with you. And essentially like we will be the production company. We will control the entire production of the film. This would have been on the first Spider-Man Homecoming film, and you guys just stay out of the way. She threw him out of the office, right? No way in hell is that going to happen. We have the property. We're going to control it. We have ideas. We have notes. We have all this other stuff. And he said, fine, when you change your mind, we'll be here. And that was, at some point,
poor Sony. All they really want to do is go back to making cameras. It's just the one guy in the boardroom. No, we shall make movies and phones regardless.
I guess, yeah, we gotta move into the future, and this is it. So, but obviously that's worked out well.
But like I said, I did really enjoy the Jubilee dynamics, and but Monkey Rich, like I was just like, what is his deal? I hate that guy.
He was fun. Again, I don't know that I'd write a character like that today, but in the moment, it seemed like it was the right vibe. It was. I was just like, it was a very visceral reaction. I was like, I hate that. We hate that guy. See? You know, I'm sure it's totally, you know, there's just so many things about it that are non-PC about it. A couple of dwarf guys with the saw calling themselves Paul and Bunyan. I mean, it's just, you know.
I loved it. I was like, where's the fine print in the big blue book?
Exactly. You know, Lilith, I needed you then. That was it. That should have been that. They should have had like a little sidekick, kind of mutant pug-sized animal that would go around ramming things. Why? That would have been the cherry on top, right? That would have been just the perfect little foil. But
I love that little nod. Anything that was tops.
You know, but there was that. I'm not going to blame the 90s. I'm going to embrace the 90s. You know, there was a certain freakishness, I think, to pop culture and those kind of confrontations there that was easy to tap into.
And was that like classic in the beginning, Charles Xavier manipulation, you know, telling his friend, "Oh, I can't help you find your daughter," but knowing like Logan's like right within earshot, be like, "No, I can't help you." Wink.
You know, that's a good question, and I don't rightly know. I would say that if that was the case, I would have had a little bit of a scene where, you know, Xavier was sort of like watching him leave, you know, something to kind of acknowledge that in a way, or a little bit of you know, him picking up the paper after Wolverine's left, or the piece of hair, and it's like, "Good hunting, you know, Logan," or something like that, or "I can't do this, but you can." And again, I think the X Office would have, you know, made sure that was included if that was meant to be the piece, as opposed to, well, for whatever reason, Charles can't play here right now, or has to keep the X-Men on the down low, but I don't go by the rules.
She wasn't
anyway.
a redhead, so she didn't matter.
Exactly. But it's a great question. You know, it's a great consideration of how, you know, how pure or manipulative, you know, you want the mentor figure to be in that way.
Because I liked it, because it could have gone either way. Yeah, it's like, could Professor X, you know, wanting that plausible deniability? Yes. Or, you know, as always, Wolverine could just go off half-cocked. It's like, yeah, I believe that too. So it could have gone either way.
And I think, again, the way it sort of played out without that reference, it feels probably more like, okay, I want Wolverine to kind of pick up on the sense of this and feel, I need a mission that's just, as he sort of sets up in his internal monologue early on, I'm accomplishing nothing here with simulations and danger rooms, and this isn't feeding my beast. I got to go out to the forest, and I got to go hunt and do that sort of thing.
And I just love, like, some of this. It seems like almost like 90s movies, like that battle, was that in the morgue? It's just like, of course, you bring terror in. We're going to have a battle in the morgue, yeah.
Also the gas station.
Yeah.
Classic.
Explosions.
Yep. You know, or under the ice and all the type of things.
But, the cliffhanger at the end of the first one, yeah, with the explosive spike through his chest.
Explosive spikes and stuff. And you know, sometimes I think there's things that just come to you as images, and you reverse engineer them out. And rereading it again, I can see the way that my mind works. Probably that whole ice scene probably came from just that image of the spikes up through the ice, right? You know, that there's an ice field and the spikes are kind of coming out of it. And then knowing the way that I'll work a story sometimes, even today, all right, how do I get there? Right. So then how do you get Wolverine under the ice, and what can you do? And how does he get into the situation, and how do we get out of it? So sometimes you follow those threads in a way that either bring you forward or, you know, kind of unravels into the backstory.
Yeah, I did like that scene, because it's like, you know, a lot of writers there will just be like, have Wolverine go through like so much like horrific damage, and it's just like, oh, that healing factor will take care of it. But you were just like, well, you know, if he gets it, you know, if this bomb goes off in his chest and, you know, turns him into a million pieces of meat, is that healing factor going to work? I don't know. And even if it does, I don't think I want to go through it.
Yeah, possibly, I guess, right? But it would be one of those re-knitting things, and you know, half the book would be him shambling around as, you know, adamantium skeleton and re-knit flesh, and we've already got one walking boogeymen kind of going around. We don't need a second one.
But yeah, no, I like it. Like I said, it's like, some writers are just like, yeah, the healing factor will take care of it. But, with yours, it's just like, yeah, I don't know if I can survive even that. And if I did, I don't want to. And again, half the issue just Terror and Jubilee, like, grabbing pieces and like throwing them in the bucket, just trying to get him to reunite himself.
Exactly. It's like, and then Terror saying, I wonder if I should keep this one for later. Which could have been a whole other story. And I think you have to be conscientious of a character's abilities and play them out as best you can, and as interestingly as you can, without becoming a crutch to lean on to get you out of a situation. Right? It's really, especially for me writing a character who I didn't regularly write by any stretch of the imagination. I'd only write him again in Terror, and then no, I don't think he showed up in the cyber comic thing that I did. Trying to be mindful, do a good job for the X offices, and not just lean on the trope of, well, the healing factor will do it. Oh, his adamantium skeleton will do it. There's probably a few places where I even lean too heavily on some of the explanation of like, oh, I can survive this because my adamantium skeleton is unbreakable. But I reading it, and you guys know I can be incredibly self-critical on stuff. I felt it was a good balance between explaining stuff to a reader who hasn't come into Wolverine before and keeping the story moving.
And I also thought it was, it was definitely a Chichester story, but two, it's like, well, no, that's
how do you define that, Phil? Because I'd really be interested.
Well, no, just like in his head more. And I don't know if Larry did that as much. I'm trying to remember. I haven't read the Larry Wolverine stuff for a while, but I was going to say no. It's definitely one of your stories, but two, I also believe it fits in perfectly with what Larry did over his long arcing. I forget how many issues he did, but yeah, sometimes a guest writer might come in and you'd be like, "Oh, I could tell this is a guest writer, man. This is like completely different than what the regular writer does." But no, I didn't feel that way. I thought, okay, I could.
Oh, that's good.
I could see this being Larry's Wolverine. Yeah.
I like the way you ended the story. You're just telling the guy, "Hey, man, don't change it because your daughter was kidnapped. Change because it's the right thing to do, you filthy billionaire."
Yeah, that was I did like that too. I'll admit. I think it was, and that gets back to that back to nature aspect of Wolverine. You mentioned before he's Canadian. The outdoors is going to be important to him. For that background, for who he is, he's more primal, more feral. So it was a nice little twist, a little preachy, but okay. And we can
of course only got worse from there. In pop culture. That's very mild compared to today.
you could see how readers of the time have really adopted those lessons with the way our world is today. Since I was in New York City the other day,
we don't have a real Wolverine to scare billionaires. That's the problem.
That's the thing we need. Right. Greta can only go so far, and that's it.
How dare you? But also, like you mentioned before, this was like, again, the cover says early August and late August, so they were doing twice a month. So how does that work with the schedule? Do you just write both at once, just to get it out because they are coming out like 2 weeks apart, or?
Yeah, it would have been a more accelerated schedule, and unusually for a fill-in issue, this was within continuity and knew that it was going to fill a gap. Of a specific time. A lot of times editors will commission fill-in issues, which are straight fill-in issues, right? They got no weave in, and they're just sitting in the drawer for the point that a team falls behind. Yeah. So the X offices were probably looking ahead and saying, or Larry saying, I got too much going on, or some combination of it. We know there's going to be a gap here. So, so these were slotted in as 58 and 59. And so that then became the schedule, right? They took whatever spreadsheet or chart that they had, bumped Larry ahead, and knew that I was going to fall in, in this place here. So in that call, it was, hey, can you help us out? Can you help Larry out? And we will, and this is the schedule. Can you do it? And again, no fool eye. It wouldn't have mattered if it was the next morning or, or whatever. But I don't recall it being an unreasonable schedule in other things. I mean, my newsletter I wrote recently about doing the Strange Days adaptation, which was this movie that came out in the 90s, some sort of like virtual reality, James Cameron, penned sort of thing. And that was, as a movie adaptation, that was a weekend, right? I got the call on like a Friday, and it was, we need the script by Monday, to suddenly keep on this schedule we're on. I guess somebody had been sitting on it or whatever else. So that was insane, right? That was, but this was just tight, I'm sure. But I would have mapped the whole story out, and then, and it being Marvel, at that point in time, it probably was a plot script, right? So I would have written the plot. Derek would have been illustrating it, and then the pages would have come back in, and then I would have done the script based on his artwork. But I probably wrote these just back to back, and probably just relatively rapidly. If I knew the whole story, I wasn't like writing 58 and then going off and doing a dozen other things and then coming back and, how did I have to wrap this up? Once I got to the cliffhanger,
they fight for the whole issue. Good luck, sir.
Lilith, I think I've said it before, but there were plenty of times as an editor, I would review scripts and it would be page 5 to 15. They fight. Thank you. I'm putting in my voucher for 10 pages, and what seriously, you could do your artist better than that,
5 pages, they fight in the forest.
Yeah, there you go. See, that upped it a lot. That actually would have been more detailed than some people put down. But
and knowing you, I know you did your homework. I don't know if you were reading the book at the time. When you got the assignment, did you go back and read like the last couple issues before leading up to this? Just
absolutely.
So you could throw in continuity stuff?
I would have read it before, and I would have also asked the X office, where do you want me to? Do you want me to leave this somewhere specifically? Does he need to get back to Salem Center? Does he need to be wherever? Does he need to be in Tokyo somehow, or anything like that? I think Larry's an amazing creator, and especially at that point with all the work that he was done. So I would want to have been very respectful to his work, and always, did that. I mean, even when I did some fill-in work at Valiant or Acclaim, a couple of years later, Len Kaminsky was on Bloodshot, and he was the writer on Bloodshot, and there was I scripted the issues, right? Len had plotted them, and then but he couldn't do the scripting for some reason. So I knew Len, called him up and just said, listen, whatever the situation is, I want to make sure like I'm honoring your story, right? Not like suddenly just writing a bunch of jokes on top of your plot or taking this in a different direction. Is there something that I should know about? So doing your research around that helps frame it out better. And you get in the zone. I think one of the best writer tricks I learned really more when I was doing the advertising work and got into advertising, and I was doing a lot of work, with IBM at that time, right? IBM hardware and stuff. And you had to write these really complicated things about hardware and software and technology. I would just type their research papers, right? Just like retype them just to get in the zone. You get in the zone. So the same way, I wasn't retyping Larry's scripts, but reading them and then picking up on, okay, now I'm going to start my own story. I'm not going to credit my stories up against Larry's, but you're in the world, as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to do my own thing over here. And you do get that sense sometimes.
What if Wolverine had boobs? Find out.
Exactly. That's season 2, Lilith. That's coming soon to Disney Plus. And
but I was going to ask you, is it easier or harder? And I'm sure you're probably going to be a little column A, a little column B, just like doing like a 2-issue fill-in, because it's like, like you're writing Daredevil. It's like, okay, I have an idea for this. I can do this like 6 months from now or however long, but this, it's 2 issues. You got a beginning, you have an end, and it's just like, I got to do this. And, the regular guy's going to come back in, 2 issues and take over. So I really can't mess with his, the tapestry he's been creating. So it's like, again, is it easier? Is it harder just doing the quick fill-in, or?
In some ways it's easier because it's an assignment. I mean, they were all assignments to one extent or another, but the sense of knowing that you had a finite structure to do things within, I think that's probably easier. And then your job is just to make it feel like, does it pick up on whatever threads it needs to pick up? Again, does it leave it wherever it needs to go? And do you feel like you're being consistent to the character and the approach there? So in some ways, I think it's a lot easier than the long continuity where you may have the authority or the presence to stretch out a story. But sometimes, at least in my case, I think I sometimes lost those threads over time. And if I could do it in retrospect, I would go back in and rethink the way I sort of planted seeds and when those seeds came to bear some fruit.
Are you talking anything specific or just like all your work? Just that out change?
I think, probably, I think a lot of my work, I would have liked to go back and whisper in my ear and sort of say, pick that up again. But I think on some Daredevil things, I lost some of the thread that I wanted to play out in some ways. I'm still very proud of it and happy with a lot of the work there. But if I go back to my original proposal and read that in a certain way, there were certain things I might have wanted to extend out differently, and maybe just pull things together more consistently. Nothing specific, but as a whole, there might have been earlier playing things out. I mean, Fisk is a big example there, right? I made a conscious choice of like, no, we shouldn't play with the Kingpin for a good chunk of time because he's out of the game, right? But in retrospect, I might have had a page of him per issue doing something, right, to kind of build him back to the point, as opposed to full stop. I think I got to switch over to my other speaker.
Okay.
Uh-oh. 1 second.
We broke him. I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the perfectionist. I love those Daredevil stories. It's like, I changed this, I changed that.
Can you guys hear me? I can't hear you now. Hang on 1 second.
Yeah, we can hear you. We should tell him we need some like pre-recorded like ad or something. Be like, hey, have you checked out DG Chichester's? I
think I can hear. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And for some reason, I can't hear you.
Because we don't have headphones on.
Give me 1 second. Sorry about this. Give me 1 second.
No, you need that after these messages. We'll be right back. I was just going to ask him about the claw, too.
The claw?
A podcast with no sound.
And sticks it in him? That was my favorite scene.
Yeah, ask him, man. Again, it's Wolverine. You know we're going to get questions about claws.
I'm going to sign out and come right back. Can I do that?
Yeah.
All right.
It wasn't Lilith's armadillos this time. I'm so proud of myself. I haven't pulled this thing out in like a week.
Hey-oh.
Hey-oh.
I know, that's what I was telling him before we jumped on. I was like, yeah, Lil's been off for like a week and a half. He was like, yeah, he's like, it seems like you guys just like throw, just like put out episodes like crazy. I was like, we were recording ahead since Lil's vacation was coming up. Although it's
Don't get used to it. We fly by the seat of our pants here.
You guys are organized. Ha ha ha, we fooled you.
Love it when a plan comes together. I like the issues you picked, by the way. I was just like, oh, Wolverine, that's a nice change of pace.
Oh yeah, I thought it was a nice change of pace. I was like, it's like, Wolverine, a character he really didn't write a lot,
and then also you get the bonus of Terror and Jubilee. It's kind of like a trifecta, honestly, Phil.
Exactly, yeah. Terror, character, pretty much created. Yeah, and then I know you love with Jubilee, so.
I love Jubilee with Wolverine most of all, honestly.
Yeah.
That brother-sister relationship is so cute.
I know. Oh, did you see? I think they just announced it yesterday. I guess Chris Claremont's coming back to write a Gambit series.
I guess Kelly was busy. That's fine.
Well, no, I think it might be set in the past because they said one of the covers is Gambit with.
Are we finally going to go back to the Guild, please?
Well, one of the covers it looks like Gambit with like Storm when she was when she got regressed to a child.
Oh, we're going back that way? Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So it's during his time. Yeah, right in that.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like the sound of that. But modern Gambit, I will petition for Kelly Thompson every time.
Oh, yeah. Hello, sir. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Sorry about that. Batteries die, apparently. And
that's why I always plug in. Yes.
Exactly.
All right, Lil.
Okay.
You had a
I wanted to talk about my favorite scene in the second issue where he's like, oh, a little payback. Takes out his claw and is like, here. I was like, I love a petty short king. I do. I really do.
It's, it's the old thing. Don't show a gun in the first act unless you're going to, fire it by the third act. So, you set things up and then sometimes they come to you right away and that's going to be the payoff later on down the thing. And it's like, oh, this guy, spikes are a big thing of environmental terrorism, and they are, right? That the whole thing about spiking trees and putting things in so they bind up the chainsaws and things like that. It was, and I'm sure still is a real tactic. So, geez, spikes, what are those like? So it's got to come back around to the claws at some point.
I mean, it sounds like you had fun with this because, again, it's the Wolverine's a different kind of character than you usually write. He's not a Matt Murdock. He's not even Terror. So,
yeah, he's very he's tortured, right, in a certain way, and certainly at this point with the Mariko death, that was an additional layer and something of a catalyst to send him off, on his own. But there's a reason for the character's popularity, right? He's got a lot of energy and he's got a lot of energetic, thrust and can do anything and will throw himself in anything. So it was a ball to, play with him here. And, I would play with him in Terror. And then, there was the one other instance I did it, which was with the Bill Sienkiewicz, story we did called Inner Fury, which was another just kind of over the top combination of craziness. But he's always, he's a fun character to write.
Oh, I'm sure.
Would it be is it a fun character to write, like as a guest writer, or could you really see yourself writing like a long arc for Wolverine? Like some characters you can see yourself for long arcs. Other characters are just fun to do a couple of issues.
No,
because there's so much expectation from the fans and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the tricky thing: expectations from the fans, and whether you're in the zone. And at that point, I would have been more concerned with that than I would be. Now, I think once you start to do that, you're always going to be in a problem area, right? Anytime you start to worry too much about the audience, and by that I mean you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to do something that's going to kick the audience off or kind of go in just a direction to say, look at me, I can excuse the term, piss all over everything. And I think you probably read stuff like that. I know I've read stuff like that where it just feels like the writer, especially, is, I'm going to show them I have no respect for these characters. I'm going to show them, something ridiculous or whatever, just because I can. And that I think, well, why are you writing this book then? Why are you doing this? But I think the long-term ability to play something out should be driven by you feel the character is ultimately guiding you more than you're kind of imposing things. And I could see myself getting into a longer-term play out of Wolverine in one way or the other. But I think it's more fun if you have a finite aspect to it too. If it's not a 2-issue series, maybe it's a 10-issue series, or maybe you're going to do a 20-issue arc on something. There's a sense of completion then to what you set out to accomplish versus the bane of continuity comics where, all right, you just did this whole thing for 15 issues and then you got to do it all over again. Or suddenly everything's great, or suddenly everything's not so great. And then it kind of invalidates what you set up as the arc of things that happened before.
All right, here's a question, since you did write some Wolverine. Do you think they should have, they did reveal his origin eventually. Do you think that was the right way to go, or should they have just kept his origins hidden in, it's lost to the mists of time? And we'll
I think it would have been more fun to leave it lost to the mist of time, especially since the play out. I mean, the play out is almost never as satisfying as the imagination on things. It's the same shtick as long-standing series or TV shows where characters have sexual tension, right? Or, chemistry tension. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess we finally got to get them together. And then it never has the same spark, after that. And there's just no way to maintain what your imagination, had in it. So I think the mystery of Wolverine was something that in some ways would have been amazing if they could have kept away from it forever. But at some point, what if we told the mystery of Wolverine and so did it? Would that be like big cash in the bank? Yes, it would. So it's going to go there. I mean, I still remember viscerally the reading the X-Men issue where, he suddenly pops the claws out of himself. I remember that like effect, when Claremont decided that was what happened, or Claremont and Byrne, or however they did it, together. And that was like, what the hell just happened? Cause up to that point, I'm sure like everybody else, it was like, it's the suit, right? And it's him. Like that's a magnitude of awesome that just takes it to kind of like a completely crazy place. It's his bones. What's going on here? And then you extrapolate from there. Was it natural? Was it an accident? Was it a process? It's always more
That
fun.
just reminded me of the Spider-Man movie. I'm sorry, that's
What's
why I'm
that?
giggling. That just reminded me of the Spider-Man
Oh,
movie. No spoilers. No spoilers.
Tomorrow,
It just made me giggle.
I decided to go tomorrow night. So
yeah, it's good.
You guys saw it already?
Yeah,
Like,
I saw. Yeah, we both saw it last night. Yes.
I went to the actual last showing though, because no offense, I love babies. I just don't like crying babies in my movie. So I went to the late show, 11. I didn't get home till 2:15. So
there's probably smarts and safety to that. The first movie I saw, out of COVID was Ghostbusters, and pleasant, nostalgic, but nobody knows how to go to movies anymore. If they ever did, there was a whole gaggle of teenagers who were taking selfies the whole time. Yeah. Then there's one guy in the front row who he obviously bought something at the local mall or something. So he had his flashlight out, not even a phone out, but his flashlight out. And he's like looking at his packaging and the lights, of course, shining up on the screen. And you're wondering, is this some kind of ghostly effect? No, it's just horrible. So it kind of put me off.
Yeah, we have to, as a society, get back to our movie theater etiquette.
Etiquette to some extent. But this one, my son saw Spider-Man opening night, and he came back and he was like, I can't tell you anything. I want to talk about it. So I feel like I have to go.
Yes, keep the secret, no spoilers.
Exactly. So I've stayed away from everything. I had him like clarify. I said, just tell me one thing. And he did. And that was it.
So on that, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, so on that note, don't want to keep them too much longer on a Saturday.
That's right. All right. So once again, thank you, sir. And before we get to your plugs, I will throw out the homework. All right. You thought this was different. Next for January, I wanted to talk Assassins #1 from Amalgam.
Oh, that's fun. Yes. That's a great one. Yeah, that's a ball.
I figure it's like a version of Elektra, and Elektra's kind of popular right now.
Yeah. No, that'll be a ball. That'll be like a good one to play out. And
I know just the shirt to wear for that.
Something you got for Christmas, perhaps?
I choose to say it was for my birthday.
Oh, yeah, true. So she gets gypped. Her birthday is like what, 2 weeks before Christmas or so?
Oh, so you get, just to be clear, this is for your birthday and Christmas, right?
Actually, I've never had to do birthmas ever.
Oh, okay. Good for you.
I'm an only child though, so
you got good, conscientious parents and friends around you. Then that's good.
Could be worse, Lilith. My one uncle, his birthday is Christmas Eve.
Oh,
yeah. Now that's a birthmas.
Yeah, too much.
All right.
That's great. That's good assignment. Okay.
Yeah, so Assassins #1 for January. And if if you love this,
also, if you haven't signed up for his Substack, that's your homework as well.
I
Every
was going to say, yes, if you love this man, where can they get more of you, Mr.
That's
Chichester?
right. So check out storymaze.substack.com. Mostly weekly, musings on comics like this and original writing, and usually a post to something I'm thinking is really great that you guys might think are great too. So check it out, and that's my plug.
All right, and kids, CapesandLunatics@gmail.com or the voicemail 614-382-2737 if you want to send in any questions. Again, we give you the homework a month ahead of time, so ask the man himself.
Don't be turning it in at 11:59.
Yeah, Russell. All right, kids. Once again, thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. And
thank you, guys. Sorry for the technical problems. I'll make sure I've got fully charged batteries in the future.
I have armadillos. It's fine.
It's fine. It's all fine.
Not a problem.
All right.
Listen,
guys. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Enjoy the holiday spurt, and I'll see you guys soon enough.
Yes. Thank you, sir. You too. See you in 2022.
Take care. Bye-bye.